What is going on, my cinephiles? Let's go ahead and talk about another little underrated horror film that I think deserves a little bit more attention, and that is Repo the Genetic Opera. Set in the year 2056, the not so distant future, an epidemic of organ failures devastates the planet, and out of this tragedy, a savior emerges in the form of Geneco, a biotech company that offers organ transplants for a price. Those who miss their payments are scheduled for repossession and hunted down by the villainous Repo Man. Now, this film is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed a couple of the Saw films, and I watched this film for the first time about a year ago or two, I think. It took me a long while for me to get into this movie. From the poster, it was really nothing that was really interested in me. I never went through a goth phase, so clearly this was not aimed at me when this movie came out back in 2008. The only thing that really caught my attention with this film is that you had Alexa Penavega from Spy Kids, and you also had Paris Hilton, which back in the day, I was a real big fan of The Simple Life, and boy was it a simple life back then. But throughout the years, I never heard a lot of people talk about this movie, and it did not do very well at the box office. This movie was released in just a small amount of theaters, and it really didn't do all that great at the box office. It made, I believe, about 185,000 on a 8 million budget, I believe. And I kind of wish Lionsgate would have pushed this movie a little bit further, because I think it would have gotten its audience and you would have built upon what this movie does. There is a lot that would attract some people. Now, this movie is not going to be for everybody because it does have that grungy gothic rock style that a lot of people will not be able to connect to this movie. It is overly violent and overly gory. However, that is what made this movie appealing to me, because it is a horror rock gothic film that I think it deserves a lot more attention than it actually gets, because there are a lot of great images in this movie, not only just with the set, treating it like an actual play. It was based on a stage play, so transferring that onto the screen is already a hard thing to tackle. And I think Darren Lynn Bousman did a really good job of tackling those little aspects and giving us something new, something refreshing that we haven't seen in the musical genre as of late. And I kind of wish this movie blew up a little bit more, because we could have gotten a little bit more of this. There is a nice sense of style when it comes to this movie and to its music. While I don't think this movie is perfect, and I don't think a lot of the music in this movie is catchy, there are two movies that I am absolutely obsessed with. One of them is Infection, that is sung by Alexa Penavega, and for those that didn't know she could sing, boy can she sing. I knew that she had a vocal range. However, when it came down to her songs in this movie, I didn't expect her to have a wide variety of range when it came down to her vocals. Paris Hilton is also in the film, and she is absolutely great. She doesn't have a big role, but whenever she is on screen, she is absolutely fantastic. She is sexy, she is sleek, her musical voice is fantastic, and just the way that the Repo Man looks, played by Anthony Head, is absolutely fantastic. There is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when it comes down to this character, because you see that once he takes the mask off and he's off duty, he has a daughter that he is protecting because she is infected from her mom's genetics, which ties in very well to that infected song. And you get that she hasn't been able to leave her house for a long time because her dad won't let her leave because of what she has. And I think when it comes down to that character, it has that nice duality to his character. When the costume comes off, he is a strict parent that's trying to keep his daughter safe, and also trying to keep that side of his life a secret from her. But when the costume comes on and he goes to work, boy does he go to work. As for the set design in this movie, it does take you a while for it to get into what this movie is trying to go for, because it does have that fog aesthetic to it and a little bit of the glow. For me personally, it took my eyes a little while for me to get adjusted to it, especially when it comes down to the CGI of how the city looks. I think in context it works. I think the CGI of how the city works and just the rules that they have absolutely makes this movie a little bit more compelling than it already is. Just the way that the costume design, the lighting, the musical aesthetics, the acting is not great by any stretch of the imagination. And I think this is a movie that deserves a lot more attention than it actually gets, because there are a lot of aspects in this movie that I personally enjoyed and I would have loved to see continued. I know they were trying to plan a trilogy with this movie, with this being the middle section, the second film being a prequel, and then the third film taking place after the events of this film. Sadly, that was never able to come to fruition, and I kind of wish that it did, because there are a lot of great aspects. Paul Sorino as the head of Geneco is absolutely fantastic. He kills it every time that he's on screen, and just a gothic punk rock type of feel that you get with this movie makes this movie worthwhile. And there are a lot of aesthetics that I would have loved to see continue or in a different movie, because there are such great things in this movie that made it feel a little bit more enjoyable than it should have been. And I can see how this movie won't work for everybody. This movie definitely won't be for everybody. It took me a while for me to check it out, but if you haven't checked this film out, I think you should give it a shot, because movies like these really deserve a little bit more attention, and I kind of wish we have a little bit more of these types of films. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and give Repo the Genetic Opera a 6 out of 10. Like I said, the acting in this movie is not perfect. It is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I do feel like this movie needs to be talked about a little bit more than it probably hasn't been talked about, because there are some great aesthetics in this movie. The music is catchy to some degree or another, and just the way that it looks, it's absolutely livid. It looks beautiful, and I just wish we had a little bit more of these types of films. But those are my thoughts on Repo the Genetic Opera. Are you guys a big fan of this movie, and did you want to watch more of these types of films? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below, and also let me know, what is your favorite song off of the film?